What's up, Flowboarders? We're going to kind of go over the contest that happened this last Sunday and looks at some pro bodyboarding footage to kind of get an understanding of, what the judges were looking for this year and just a little bit of a guide to try to help you, get move up in your either pro or amateur bodyboarding divisions and just try to get better. Um, this is not meant to be, like a diss at any of the riders that ran over there. I don't want them to take it the wrong way. They're all super talented, and everybody is really fun to watch. So I just hope that none of them take this the wrong way. But yeah, to just get started, we're going to go off these kind of four key aspects that I think are really important. One is cleanliness. So, staying on the wave, always landing right on top of your board, not landing, kind of fuzzy to where it kind of looks like you might catch an edge. And then, minimizing your foot checks, pushing yourself back onto the wave and stuff like that. Next, you have your combos. Um, Looking for around like 2 to 3 piece at least combos. 4 to 5 are great, but once you get up into like 5, it starts to kind of get repetitive. So trying to kind of just balance that kind of style with combos. You also want to have different kind of combos. So, not just going between drop knee roll to rodeo to drop knee roll to rodeo. So like learning as many tricks that you can and learn how to use all those tricks in your combo. So you can kind of spice them up. And then also, just minimizing the pauses that you take in between your tricks will help you just get a little bit more points in your combos. Next is transitions. So, transitions as in you're going from drop knee into prone via a trick, right? So that can be an ARS, can be a rodeo to prone, big spin to prone. And this can be like in a combo or just on its own, depending on what you're doing. If you only know how to do it on its own, great, do it. If you know how to do it in a combo, maybe you should. Maybe you should do it in the flats, kind of or across the wave. Just know what you need in your run and kind of fit it in there. Lastly, our shove-its. Shove-its include big spins, 3 shoves, 540 big spins. You have front side, back side shove-its. Learning these shove-its are important because it shows that you are learning all aspects of bodyboarding and not just flips. I know it can be really easy to get really focused on flips because they're cool and they're fun, but shove-its are really important. Just because they're technical, they're not as easy to keep up clean. Anybody can do it a flip, So those are those 4 main aspects in bodyboarding. So we're gonna go look into some footage and kind of go over these. All right, so I think it's pretty fitting that we start here with Daniel, our man, looking over at the front. I've looked at either 1 or 2 rides from each rider. Everybody in the finals had not a great second run, whether they, hit a foot somewhere, had to push themselves back in, fell off completely. So I'm not looking at anybody's second runs, but I'm mainly looking at the first and third runs from the finalists. And then also I'm going to be including Jackson just because I think these are the 5 people that you should be looking out for in the pro bodyboard division for kind of contenders of podium finishes. So not to say that there aren't any other riders who could get up there on the podium, but just from consistency of last year's, these were the people who are here. These are the people that I know are most likely going to be coming to Oklahoma City. But we're going to go and look at Daniel's first run. And I would say with Daniel's runs, just, pressing play and looking at these, he's got really clean styles. He's hitting amplitude on all his flips and tricks. Importantly, he's actually implementing shove-its into all of his rides and transitional. So we just saw transitional ARS back down in the up cap, up into the drop knee position. He's going to do 3 shove across, and he's always going back and forth in between the wave. Every time he's going from one part to the other part of the wave, he's intentionally looking for a trick that he can do. So he started off in the flats, he moved across, and did an ARS down, and then back up into a 3 shove across. And every time he's going, it looks clean, a little 3 shove back into switch. And I didn't include switch just because it didn't really seem like whether the riders weren't comfortable in switch, or the judges, didn't really care if they were in switch or not. Not that judges don't care, but it's just obvious that switch and bodyboard isn't as important as switch and stand-up flowboarding. So I didn't really add that into any of the criteria that I kind of listed off earlier. But yeah, that was the end of Daniel's first run there, and everything was clean. He was hitting transitionals with that ARS back down into prone. He was clean, super steezy with his entry. Most of these guys are going to be steezy with their entries. With like a DK roll on the flat or rodeo on the flat and so forth. He hit shove-its with specifically those 3 shoves across are super clean, super quick, super snappy, and super hard to do. So he's going to get a lot of points for those kind of things. So, and he did do combos as well. He hit like 2 or 3 piece combos inside of there. So it just shows that like he didn't do anything super crazy. Like he didn't do an air or an overload, right? You don't need to know an overload to win a competition. He's not doing anything super technical like big spins down into prone or even super big 4 or 5 piece combos, because you don't need to. You need to have a good rounded run that looks good and ticks all these boxes, and you'll get a higher score. That's pretty much all it is. All right, so moving on for Daniel, I'm going to go back into Jackson. Jackson, unfortunately, was not able to move up into the finals. When you have 5 real contenders, there's always going to be 1 or 2, depending on the format, are going to kind of get snuffed and not make it into the finals. I think Jackson could have competed really well in the finals, but all the, Danny and Joel definitely deserved here in this semifinal to move on over Jackson. I'm just going to kind of like explain my kind of thought process on why I think so. I'm just going to look at one run from Jackson and just kind of look at it. And we're going to go into it here. Jackson is a super stylish rider. He rides differently from a lot of different people because of just how he stands in his prone or in his drop knee position. But you just kind of see out the back, he's going into some big combos, into drop knee, and doing a rodeo. Just kind of like that standard hubcap opening combo that we see a lot, into an ARS, into an overload. This was his highest scoring run. He did kind of flub every single one of his runs, so it's not going to be super clean. He did land that overload earlier, one of his other runs, but he finally does get a big spin combo there, and that's pretty much the only shove it that you're going to see. Is at the end he did that big spin, just at the end of tail ends of his runs. So he did 2 there, and that was pretty much it. So kind of he does hit most of those check boxes. He did some shove its. Granted, they were only just regular big spins, so they're the bare minimum that you can add into there. But if you can do those, you should always add them. If you can't, you don't have any other shove its in your run, because that does show the judges that you're working on it at least. If you can get it looking clean, that's great. Try to implement it into a combo, just add it in wherever you can. He was hitting some transitional tricks, but overall Jackson just wasn't super clean right into it. And from what I understand, he mainly rides at like a summer, outdoor only wave over towards the coastal islands or coastal shores. So I would understand that he's kind of rusty going into this. And Jackson kind of in my mind is like a go big or go home kind of rider. So it doesn't surprise me that he didn't move on. Not that he's not a good rider. It's just kind of like in his nature to be super super big and super flashy. So mainly think that he could work on bigger shove-its for the future, and just kind of cleaning up those each one of his runs, so that way he's on the wave, he's not having as many falters. And those are like the main things. The last thing I could think of is kind of utilizing the whole wave. And from what I saw, he was kind of like sitting in this pocket a lot of times. It'd be cool, if he kind of gathered around over here, maybe did something down here in this kind of L shape. I think he did some tricks down in the flats over here. But yeah, utilizing this side of the wave kind of would help him a lot more, in my opinion. All right, from here on out, we're just going to go in, ranking order. So Jackson was, around equal 5th kind of area. Now we're looking at Eli and seeing, what he could have done. The angle here on his first run, his first and third runs, the angles were weird. They didn't really get moved as quickly as possible. But he does get into here. He starts out really big with a nice rodeo on the flat, and he's looking good here. My biggest thing that I noticed from Eli is he's super clean. He's got big air. He's got some nice flip combos, but he very rarely does any shove its. I believe he did a shove it after time, like a 540 big spin, from what I remember, after time on one of his runs. And I like in the stream, I was like, why isn't he doing that in his runs? Because if he wants to move up or if he wants to get higher in the podium, he's going to need to add those into his runs. He did look the cleanest on his overloads, but kind of like I've alluded to earlier, you haven't really needed him to move on, to win at all in pro bodyboards. So it might be beneficial for him to lean off of those flip combos and really focus up and like on that ride. At all, he never landed a shove it. He never threw a shove it, never landed one, and it was a decent run, and that's why he got around a 5 on that run. But he left a lot to be desired. He had like one or two, maybe one transitional trick in there. But if he added those shove-its, he can really up his score. And then just kind of like with Jackson too, utilizing the other rest of the wave, the L right here. He did a trick in the flat early, but this side of the wave, not really intentionally used at all. So, it's not the end of the world. Like this is probably the last thing you want to work on is, utilizing the rest of this wave over here. Once you get like a nice handful of tricks that you can do over here, you can do a shove it, if you can do a transitional trick, you can do flips, combos, everything over here. Now start thinking about, okay, what can I do over here and add into my run? So that's kind of where I'm at with Eli. Similar to Jackson, but he's a little bit cleaner than Jackson, which, shows why he's in this final. He wasn't in that original heat with Jackson, but that's, where he is and where I think he could go. So here we're going to look over Danny's rides. He got third, and this is going to be his best run that he did. It's actually going to be the only run where he adds in his shove-it combos from kind of like what I remember watching. I remember watching in the semis being like, why isn't he throwing shove-its? I see a lot of ARSs, see a lot of overloads, but I'm not seeing any shove-its, kind of similar to what Eli and Jackson kind of did. But here, besides like shove-its, he adds a lot of shove-its into this run. Besides shove-its, I think his kind of main thing is his style. He leans really into this combo style, but I would say maybe he leans too much into it, or at least he could kind of find a way to switch up how he's comboing and where he's comboing. So you see he's always comboing in this little pocket, and he's really like almost always landing all of these combos. He's adding a 540 big spin at the end there. But that's kind of all he's doing. He's not doing big tricks across the wave. He's not, coming over here where he just was and doing tricks going the opposite way into a combo or whatnot. So with him, I'd say maybe he just needs to work on his style a little bit more to clean it up. Just after seeing so many combos go over and over again, some of his, power just kind of gets muted there. There's the first thing he's going to do other than a combo, and it's a kind of a sloppy big spin over in the flats. So if he could add, maybe some flips going across the wave, maybe some big spins going the other way over here, just something to kind of utilize more of this wave. I think Danny could, push for second or even for first, if he can get that stuff cleaned up. But yeah, that's kind of like where I am with Danny, where I think he could kind of improve. And we're going to go into Joel's runs. Alrighty, last but not least, Joel. He got second in the competition. His runs were just right in between, Danny's best run and Daniel Trabchek's worst runs. I think Joel is super smart, super clean, and has some really cool technical stuff that he's doing with shove-its, and we'll kind of go into here. He's also going to start in prone here and do, the holy Bible of drop, bodyboard combos where he goes up into drop knee and does a rodeo. In previous ones, he was doing, DK roll into rodeo. But then he's going to do, the Nick Sanchez combo here where he goes, shove it, DK roll, rodeo, shove it, and then gets a nice 3 shove there. And you can just kind of see he's really moving across the wave. Things are intentional. He's not doing much on the right side, but he's always moving from there and moving back and forth. So and traveling over to towards the right. So it kind of feels like he's utilizing more of the wave. Um, and he gets a nice 540 big spin combo in there as well. And that's why this score ends up running so high. If I go back, see if we can find that combo that he just did. He just ended it. So he starts right there. So if he comes across, he's the only one who does this right here. He does a 540 big spin into a DK roll to another 540 big spin, and that lands this combo really well, and his run a lot more points here. But he wasn't, before this run, wasn't too far off of Danny's score. But he was higher, and I think that mainly to do with his style was just a little bit cleaner. He is kind of like I don't want this to be so, not in a bad way, but robotic, as in like he has everything down, he has everything scripted. You know, things are clean. He's not really splashing a ton. He's not catching a ton of edges whenever he's doing these combos. And he's getting plenty of amplitude. He's doing things across the wave. His biggest thing is he's not doing anything like transitional wise. He's not doing an ARS. He's not doing a rodeo prone. So I think that if he adds those kind of aspects, if you can keep everything he just did, keep that 540 big spin combo and maybe add an ARS into there. I know he got hurt a couple years ago, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But just if you can add some kind of transitional combos into there, to where he's going back down into prone, coming back up into drop knee, that could really add to his score, and just make it look better. But I hope that helped you as a viewer kind of understand what goes into like a judge's mind whenever they're watching bodyboarding. Bodyboarding is such a hard sport to judge, just because like tricks aren't better than others, right? Like a big spin isn't necessarily better than a rodeo, and a rodeo isn't necessarily better than a big spin. And we all kind of learn these tricks in different orders and whatnot. So it's really about what you're doing with those tricks, and how you're moving across the wave, that matters more in bodyboarding. So when even if you're an amateur bodyboarder, if you include as many of these into your runs, then you can almost guarantee yourself to get really high up into the podium. Just because judges like to see different things, and especially in those amateur divisions, a lot of people tend to lean, oh, I'm going to do a lot of combos, or I'm going to do a bunch of flips, and they're not practicing shove-its, and they're not practicing transitional tricks as much, or they're not practicing their style as much, so they end up not looking as good. So as an amateur, if you can, I'm really going to focus on my big spins, I'm really going to focus on my shove-its, I'm really going to focus on making my runs look good. If you can do that, I think you can go really far into your runs and just help you in your future competitions.